Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's okay. Welcome to Opera San Antonio's interview series called Beyond the Production, where we do interviews with everyone from all aspects of operatic production to give you a little bit of insight. Now, today, you're going to notice that I am without my partner in crime, Miss Lauren Meeker. We wish her absolutely the best. She's in rehearsals for an opera called Winkensport, which is going to be released digitally through the Texas Opera Alliance. Right now, she's working in Houston. And as I said, we wish her absolutely the best. And I hope that I do a good job to make her proud. Today's interview, we've got a wonderful tenor, great friend of mine, a great friend of many people that I hope to hear from. If you want to write comments, you can write them on Facebook or YouTube, and I'll be able to see them and read through them. And hopefully we can all interact with David on this. But we are going to do a fantastic interview today with my great friend, David Portillo, who I met in Chicago when he was working at the Young Artist Program at Lyric Opera. We've known each other for a pretty long time. And most recently, for those of you that are in San Antonio and know of our productions, the first production I conducted in San Antonio was Traviata, and my Alfredo was the wonderful David Portillo. So we're going to talk to him today. And if you would please help me welcome, I don't know how, I feel like I should have an applause track or something, but if you would help me welcome Mr. David Portillo to our interview series.
Hey, I'll be my own applause track.
There you go. Yay! How are you? How are you doing today?
Oh, it's good to see you. How's it going?
Good to see you too. Not too bad at all. Where are you and how are you?
I'm very well, and I'm in my home here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We've lived here for 3 years now.
3 years. Wow. Yeah. The Davids and the dog.
The Davids and the dog Ruthie. Yeah.
The dog Ruthie. Fantastic. Now, the first thing that I always like to ask, and look at this, we've got so many comments already from Alan Salvada. Thank you so much.
Oh, Alan.
Always saying hello, and you'll be fine. Thank you so much. It's my first time doing this interview by myself. So
you're doing great already.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man. Julia, thank you so much, Julia, and Linda, of course, and Jillian. Thank you so much for all of your encouragement. So if you do want to comment, please do that on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll definitely get to all of those. But the first question I always get to ask, and Lauren always lets me ask this, is about the beginning of your career, because everybody always has such a different path. And I just want everybody to know that this interview is usually about an hour. But David and I spoke yesterday, just going over things and comparing, and him having to talk to me about stuff. We talked for about an hour and 40 minutes. So I think we have more than enough material for the interview today.
Yeah, some of the material was not exactly like music related.
Right, so maybe not music related. But I mean, for me, the thing that I'm really excited to hear about, because I have never participated in any of this, of course, as a non-singer, but I want to talk about the beginning from First Baptist Church, but also I am so fascinated by like all-state choir stuff. I had no idea about any of this stuff. So I would never have done it. You know, I've never sung in chorus. But if you could go over at least the beginning of how you sang and then explain to those of us that have no idea what that is.
Yeah, of course. So, well, first I grew up going to church choir, singing in all the church choirs. My mother was a musician, music teacher. And so I always went to choir rehearsals and piano lessons and everything. Then
in San Antonio.
In San Antonio, yes. So a very specific, and I hope there's a lot of people from San Antonio on this and from Texas in general, the very specific thing that happens in Texas when you're a musician and you're in public school mainly, but they now have small schools and private school. They participate in this big thing called Texas Music Educators Association, all-state choir, all-state band, all-state orchestra, all-state jazz, like everything. So the all-state choir is a big deal, Francesco.
I mean, explaining it to me yesterday was insane. The auditions and levels, and
there's camps in the summer where you learn your certain music that you're going to audition with the whole fall and until the new year. And then there are usually different steps along the way. So you have like a district audition, just seeing if you know how to do the music auditions, and then the region choir, you go and audition, and you sit in a cafeteria, and you have your 3 octavos that you're about to audition with. You get the cuts. Each part gets their own cut. So then you
Okay.
have to actually like sing through your cut, which is maybe a minute, maybe 3, and then
Okay.
you get walked in line with about 10 of your people from your part to a classroom where you stand in front of a screen. I actually don't know how they do it now.
Okay.
There used to be CDs. They used to press start, and you sing your cuts to
Right.
a screen. You don't know who's behind there. There's judges behind there, and
Okay.
they adjudicate your, obviously all the objective things musically,
Right.
and basically you try and make the first like 10 chairs, and you have chairs, levels of chairs. And you
Wow.
get into the region choir first, and then the next steps you go into an area, and then if you are the top 5 in your area, then you make the all-state choir. All-state choir is a big deal too, because in February you get to go to San Antonio and stay downtown and be in the convention center and basically get a week off from school, which is cool.
Amazing.
Amazing. And so that's the reward at the end. And also there's a lot of like, I made the all-state choir for the next year or whatever. And
Fantastic.
I am a 4-year all-state choir member, Francesco.
I mean,
There are few people who can say that.
I mean, it sounds and like, what are the concerts like? Do you just perform once? Is it one festival? What happens?
It's one big concert, but it's like a week, Wednesday through Saturday of rehearsals, which are like really thrilling for a high schooler to be in this huge choir that's very high level because you've auditioned, everybody's really good. And so that also teaches you like, oh, this is the highest level of singers that are happening in my area, and this is what I can grow to be, or this is where I'm at. And it's a good encourager. It's very competitive. It's very Texas in that way. But I definitely learned a lot from it. I learned a lot of good things, and I learned a lot of like how, not to get so stressed about stuff, and how to, how to practice and prepare for things. There was one year we sang Bach's Double Motets Singet dem Herrn, like really hard music. My freshman year, I was singing Stravinsky's Symphony of Songs.
Oh my God, that's one of my favorite pieces. I love that piece. It's incredible.
And a 14-year-old was like, I love Stravinsky. Like, how often do you get that chance as a 14-year-old?
That's incredible.
It's both filled with that, like, oh my gosh, you have 14-year-olds singing Stravinsky, but then at the same time, I was really thrilled to be a part of that process, and it was exciting, and yeah.
I'm going to show you a couple of these things before we move on, because I know I want to talk about solos and how that got into. But we've got, if you can see, Stacy Ann.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness, nice.
They still rave about you. Of course they do. And then of course I'm going to do this just because both of us know and love Kyle Albertson. Oh really? Oh, and of course.
Kyle, yeah, we talked about it yesterday.
We did actually talk about this yesterday.
We were actually saying, are you going to wear a collar or not? The thing is, like, now that we're on Zoom every day, there's like, you can wear shorts whenever you want to, but whether or not you wear a collar means you're professional or not.
I mean, I'm guessing Carla was also involved in all-state choirs, and of course, both of us know our great friend Carla.
Yes,
and we've got Linda Peschke. Oh, this is so wonderful. All 4-year all-stater, incredible.
So Linda Peschke was my undergraduate, moving on to undergraduate. She was my undergraduate voice teacher all 4.5 years. And I give her so much credit for building me as a solo singer, because I learned how to be professional on stage, to be prepared. My voice lessons, I would get really excited about them, but I was also like trying to like step up to being in the Peschke voice studio. And there's a lot about undergrad that teaches you really how to like bring yourself to these moments. And she also is an incredible singer and an incredible teacher, and I was very lucky to get to work with her.
Oh, and she's a new board member for us, and we're so excited to have her. She was involved in the stuff that we did for the San Antonio libraries as well, the public libraries. And we've got Lauren, of course, wishing us love from Houston.
Lauren, we miss you.
And who's Peggy?
That's my mom.
There you go. Always the mom. I'm always waiting for the moms, of course. That's so funny. You've got Linda here saying that you were awesome, and they're so honored. And then, of course, we're going to bring it back to Kyle Albertson, who says, "Of course, you talked about." I'm going to hide all of those things now from Kyle.
From Kyle. No, thank you, Kyle. Yes, we did plan our outfits.
But moving on to undergrad, I mean, you know, the story. I mean, this is such an interesting thing for me, because I got I started classical music before I went to high school, and high school is really where I went and did a lot of jazz and jazz combos and things like that. So that brought me to a different spot. But for you, this smoothly transitioned into also undergrad. So talk to me a little bit about that transition.
I was enthralled with choir still, so I did my undergraduate in music education, and I was really happy to do that. I went to UT San Antonio. Go Roadrunners! Birds up!
There you go.
Birds up! Yeah, I think that's right. And so UTSA had a really good size of school for me that I was in everything. You had to be in madrigals and choir and opera. So then I felt like I was definitely using my voice in so many different ways, which I think is really, I got very much like the opportunity to do a lot of different stuff. And I fell in love with opera like kind of soon into voice lessons, because I definitely had to sing some arias, and I had to start singing with a little more, without thinking about blending. I was singing more solos. My freshman year, there was this audition that it came about from somebody who heard me in a competition that I did in my senior year, and she was like, "Oh, you should sing for this audition." And it was for a children's version of the Magic Flute that the San Antonio Symphony was putting on. Right. And all of a sudden, my freshman year of college, I was singing for the conductor of San Antonio Symphony, singing this very difficult middle of the opera aria from Magic Flute. Wie stark, but I was doing it in English, and I remember just being so nervous and not really knowing what I was getting into. And then, of course, once you go into your grad work and you start working on the whole role, you think, "Wow, I was really in over my head," but it was a really great opportunity. Yeah, I'm sure there are things. There are tons of roles that I remember singing arias from when I was too young, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I can sing all the notes, whatever."
Yeah, sure, why not?
It's very different now. So those sorts of little things kind of just kept leading to singing a little more and more opera. And then my senior year, I sang Sam in Street Scene.
Super. Yeah.
So that was really fun. And I was doing my student teaching right after that. And when I was doing my student teaching, I had gone to Nats that year, and I had done really well. And I met a voice teacher who was up in University of North Texas, who I decided to go study with. So I stayed in Texas, and I was really, really happy for it. University of North Texas had a really big school compared to UTSA, and I was definitely going to concentrate on opera for a while and see how that went. So, yeah.
Well, going back to the Magic Flute, I know that we have a clip that I'd love for you to set up for us.
Yes.
So if you don't mind, we all know that David is a wonderful singer and has sung all over the place. And, this is an excerpt from Magic Flute from, I think it's in Met.
No, this one is from Glyndebourne. The Glyndebourne Festival is in the UK, in this beautiful, beautiful part of the south of UK, in Lewis. And it is a production by André Barbe and Renaud Doucet, and they are a French-Canadian duo who have beautiful designs and then very interesting, cool stagings. So this is that aria that's right in the middle of Magic Flute, where Tamino finds out that Pamina is alive. He gets really excited, and he's got to play the flute. So there's a lot of flute. There's a lot of flute lip syncing, flute syncing, if you will. Yeah. And the production behind me, I'm supposed to be in a freezer, a meat freezer, or the butchers come out of the meat freezer, and he's singing the aria about how the flute makes all the animals come to life, and they follow his lead with the flute. Yeah. And it turns out that this cow that they're about to slaughter comes to life. So that's why this puppeteering, which is brilliant puppeteering, is happening with a cow. So.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you set that up.
Yeah.
Let's listen now to this aria from Magic Flute. 1 second.
Mit jedem Tone meinen Dank zu schildern. Vielleicht sah Paminen schon, vielleicht eilt sie mit ihm zu mir, vielleicht, fühlt mich ihr Ton zu ihr, fühlt mich ihr Ton zu ihr, fühlt mich der Ton zu ihr.
Absolutely fabulous. I mean, I've never seen that production at all, but now I want every production that I do to have a slaughtered cow that comes to life.
I'll tell you what. I mean, a lot of it was built on like Zarastro was supposed to be like the king chef of this hotel that the queen owned, and it was a historical sort of story that linked from a Viennese hotel that they had done some research on.
Mm-hmm.
It was a cool idea. I mean, it's hard to put Magic Flute on top of stuff just because there's so much in Magic Flute that's so fantastical. But I loved being. I mean, the place was really great and the people were really nice, so I had a good time. That is actually available for on DVD.
On DVD.
I do not own that material that we just showed, so don't sue me. This is for educational use.
We've got some wonderful comments from Susan Knoll here. Of course, wonderful to have us, and of course Aaron Hupty saying the best, and of course Amy Hutchinson that we do know, and
Amy.
Of course, hi Amy, thank you so much for writing in, and of course Veronica that works with us. Thank you, Veronica, for helping set up all of the clips, and I mean it's just so wonderful. We all can't wait to hear you again in person, David. Thank you so much. But I do want to continue with the conversation that goes to your student teaching. I had no idea that you did student teaching or that you got your degree in education. And then from there, stepping from that into what I think is an incredible section of time where you're in different, not only outreach programs, but in young artist programs. I sort of met you at the end of that at Lyric, but I think going through those sections of your career is important for people to know.
Yeah, so pretty much when I went to University of North Texas, I started auditioning for all the summer programs. The summer programs really felt kind of like that Nats experience a little bit, because you kind of figure out who all is doing what you want to do in the future and figuring out where you are in your age level and your trajectory. So a lot of that you don't really know when you're going into grad school, and you don't know what the possibilities are for employment in the future, all that stuff. So I did a million young artist programs. In the summers, I did Opera North, and then the next summer I did Chautauqua Opera. And the next summer I went to the Merrell Opera program in San Francisco Opera.
Fantastic.
That next year, I had my first year out of school, and so I had to like piece together a young artist year sort of thing. Right. So I went to Tulsa Opera, and I did education outreach for Cincinnati Opera.
Nice.
I mean, and the thing is, like, these young artist programs, of course, none of them pay that well. They're all considered sort of internship like in
Mm-hmm.
their scale, but
Right.
they were huge. Like they're ways that you start your career, at least for American singers. It's very it's a big opportunity to kind of like continue to actually be working,
Right.
even if you're not making tons of money. You're still at least you're in the rehearsal room, and you're having to go to the practice room, and you're getting
Right.
the opportunity to do the next project. And sometimes a project is like singing chorus while you cover something, or sometimes it's singing chorus while you just watch somebody covering.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's so many different things that I learned. After Merrell, my second year,
Mm-hmm.
I went to do a year-long program at the Florida Grand Opera for one
Right.
season.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was when I auditioned for the Lyric Opera of Chicago.
But you met Jana before, right? With Richard
sorry.
Perlman? Yeah.
So my
Mm-hmm.
original audition was at Merrell in the summer when
Okay.
Richard Perlman was still alive. That was in 2005. And
Right.
so I met Jana and Richard that summer, and they
Mm-hmm.
were like, "Oh, you're young. At 25, you're thinking like,
Sure.
I'm ready to go." And of course, they keep saying, "You're young. Come back
Mm-hmm.
next year." And like now that I look back at it 15 years later, I'm like, yeah, I was young. I
Yeah.
didn't know what I was doing, and I'm really glad that they kept with me until I went to Chicago in 2007.
Yeah, I mean, some of the most supportive people. I mean, Richard is the reason why I was introduced also to Lyric, and Jana, of course, for a really long time. And those connections, I think, are really important. It's important for people to know that, that we were talking about this yesterday, right? You're really your own brand. You're the one that does the best and most amount of work for yourself as an artist, how you represent yourself, how you're prepared, how you act. All of those things are paramount to making those connections and having, people like me, even in small artistic roles or music directors of places or anything. I think it's important that everyone knows that connection is what sort of helps leapfrog you forward all the time.
Right. You can have brilliant auditions but not have a relationship with that person that you're singing for. And then when you build that relationship and it comes out good, that's the most validating part about being a singer, is the relationships that you're building through your work. And a lot of times those the most fulfilling engagements that you'll do are just the ones with the best people around, because you're having such a good time. And you maybe aren't singing the lead role, or you maybe are not, you maybe didn't come and sing the perfect notes every single night, but you feel like you really you enjoyed the experience because you were making music with people that you enjoyed, that you collaborated with, that you felt like you could move with. And the building of those relationships is sometimes the hardest part about getting out of that young artist realm into, we talked about this yesterday, about getting into freelance world too.
Yeah. And then so moving from, any highlights from Lyric and things, roles? And I know I saw you do so many things over there, but that connection from that big of an opera company and that important of a young artist program to then transfer to, I think it was Anna Archuleta and moving on to all of those things. If you could make that connection for us, I think that'd be great. But of course, we have to give props to Lyric and highlights from there.
Yeah, of course. those 3 years as a part of the Ryan Opera Center were great. But then they brought me back for 2 really good covers, or for a cover, and I was in that Fanciulla the next season, which was also really fun because it was just a whole bunch of friends having a blast. And and then I also covered the Hercules, the Handel Hercules. Anyway, those were, all of these were really fun things to be a part of, but I wasn't necessarily singing the major roles. I was covering, or I was a part. I was just, I was Trin in Fanciulla, but somehow those were such fulfilling days because they were right at the time when I was coming into my own as a performer, and I was singing other roles in other places, maybe smaller, obviously smaller companies that I needed to work on my Ferrando at Virginia Opera, and I needed to really do, Ottavio in St. Louis, that sort of thing. So going back to the beginning of the Lyric, my first assignment was singing Gastone and covering Alfredo for Traviata, for that production that we did in San Antonio, actually. And it was 2 casts. Do you remember this? It was Elizabeth Futrell and Joe Calea making his debut.
That's what it was.
and then in the winter it came back with Renee Fleming and Matthew Polenzani.
Wow. There you go.
I remember I was just like, what am I doing?
Yeah. Just a few names. They're okay.
A few names. And now I look back, and covering cast was me, Susanna Phillips, who ended up singing A Million Violetas, and Quinn Kelsey. And I was like, again, what am I doing here?
Right.
It was such one of those experiences where I was, again, in over my head. I learned a lot for that age, because really, like, I was 27, and I didn't end up singing the role until 30.
We did it, yeah.
So, like, you know, there was definitely time, age, like a lot of like figuring out my technique that needed to happen before I really could like delve into Alfredo. And then, but being on stage as Gastone every night and listening to Matthew Polenzani every night, it's just like a voice lesson in itself.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, and I think it's also great, you know, I love it when programs like Ryan Opera Center bring the students back, bring the young artists back, not students, you know, bring the young artists back. I think it says a lot to their commitment for your development. And I know that I mean, I personally know, because I, you know, work at Lyric all the time. I think that's just, you know, such a high level of integrity for them to bring people back. And of course, to help. And then, so moving in from there, on to let's just talk about agencies and managers and all of that, because I know that you've also done a bit of singing in Europe as well, and you know, all over the States. But I think let's do a little bit of that.
The timeline,
talking through management.
The timeline I really like couldn't have worked out better, because I was finishing at the Lyric, and that next summer I went to Wolf Trap and I sang my first Ferrando at Wolf Trap Opera, and I had just turned 30. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. Like, moving out of a really what I would call steady job at the Lyric was, you know, daunting. But then Ryan Taylor, who is now the president and CEO of Minnesota Opera here in Minneapolis, really good friend. He was like, I'm starting my first roster on Anna D'Archuleta's roster. I'd love for you to like come and sign. And I was like, awesome. So, you know, he had his first handful of singers, and he was there for about a year, but then he was called to go to Arizona Opera, and that was a better fit for him. It was a better fit for us, because we all moved on to Anna's roster, and Anna D'Archuleta, if you all know everybody who knows who she is like one of the hardest working people ever.
Hardest working, absolutely.
And we had a really cool time, because a lot was like churning. I had my first and only real European audition was for a cover at La Scala, and I was like, I got it for Ottavio, and it was a new production of Giovanni with Richard Carson directing. And the people, Anna Netrebko was making her debut at La Scala, and I was covering John Osborne, who's amazing also, and I was just like, what am I doing here? Again, in over my head. And then I felt like, all right, well, you know, let me take the opportunity to sing for people, get to know people.
Yeah, of course.
Mainly, Richard Carson liked me, so then I ended up working in Geneva the next season for a new opera that he was doing there. So that brought a few new like Swiss and French companies. Then I sang there is when I sang for the X Festival, which is where I went back to a couple of summers in 14 and 15 or 14, 16. Oh my gosh, it feels so long ago. But it was, I mean, like the X Festival is another one of those amazing, beautiful places that has beautiful summer opera. And I just lucked out with being like 1 foot in one and 1 foot in the other. It was about that time that I moved from Anna D'Archuleta to IMG, which is I was using them for worldwide. And then I took on a European agent with Harrison Parrott. And since COVID, I've moved off of Harrison Parrott, and now I'm just on IMG's roster.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But, you know, I know. I mean, the journey is incredible. And, you know, that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to interview people from every aspect of operatic production so that we can give people some insight into everyone's different journey. I mean, it's just incredible what you've done. But what I do want to do is hear another excerpt Before we go on to, I mean, I know we have one thing that we specifically want to talk about, but then I think, you were gracious enough to say that we can talk about cancellations and being a singer through COVID and everything like that. But before we do that, I would love for you to set up the clip from San Diego Opera, I think it is, with Gary Wado conducting of Cenerentola.
Yes, Cenerentola
Fabulous.
was one of those roles that I loved to do. I didn't do it enough during my Rossini time. I act like it's not like I'm not doing it anymore. I will totally sing Rossini, but like I just haven't done it a lot. But I loved singing Don Ramiro. I sang it first at the Washington National Opera, and then this came about 2 years later in 2016 with San Diego Opera, and the director is a Australian lady named Lindy Hume, who is so brilliant. She has great designers, and she put together this this like turn of the century in London esque sort of venue for this production. And pretty much Ramiro has just, in this clip, what did I just say? Oh, I said, I'm going to, because he's been dressing up as the valet the whole first act. In the second act, he says, I'm not going to dress as the valet. I'm going to go get her and tell her that I love her. Here's her bracelet.
Fabulous. Here's her bracelet. Let's listen to this excerpt from Cenerentola.
Dolce speranza, freddo timore, dentro al mio cuore stanno a pugnare. Dolce speranza, freddo timore, dentro al mio cuore stanno a pugnare. Dolce speranza, freddo timore, dentro al cuore stanno a pugnare. Noi voleremo, domanderemo, ricercheremo, ritroveremo, ricercheremo, noi voleremo, domanderemo, ricercheremo, ritroveremo, sì. Dolce speranza, freddo timore, dentro al mio cuore stanno a pugnare. Dolce speranza, freddo timore, dentro al mio cuore stanno a pugnare. Sì. Dolce speranza, freddo timore, dentro al cuore stanno a pugnare. Noi voleremo, amore mai da guidare, ricercheremo, ritroveremo, amore mai da
That was absolutely fantastic. I mean, we have so many comments here. Hold on a second here. Look at this. We've got Alyssa also.
Are any of them
there?
Yeah,
yes, there
Alyssa.
you go. There you go. We've got Alyssa here, of course.
Sisters.
And then this is the most important comment. Absolutely not luck. You are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Linda, for saying that. And we've got Alan Salvato. Thank you so much, Alan. And then back again to Alyssa.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely beautiful, wonderful singing. And that, let me just ask, just because I know we know, and as a coach and anything else, but like the difference between singing a role like that, singing Prince Ramiro, singing Tamino, singing, that we're going to hear in another excerpt, Flying Dutchman. So, the preparation that you do for that, because I know you said that Rossini days, and people do have that where they're like, of course, you would still sing Rossini now, of course, but there are transitions that singers go through, and there's a definite different type of preparation, even just a different type of warm up for what you would do. Just the difference between, let's say, the excerpt that we're going to hear later, from the Wagner, and from something like this that you did in San Diego. I think it's a great way to have to share this one. I see. Just talk a little bit about that preparation, because sometimes people don't know. They just think, as you said, you're a tenor, you can sing the notes, and that's not it at all. The level of preparation to do those different things, even just the way you would warm up from one act to another act,
100%.
to do a different thing. Like, is there anything that any light you can shed on that for those?
Yeah, no, of course. I do think that there's a lot to be there's a lot to be said for muscle memory. So when you're doing all of these rehearsals, you are really kind of building in these roles to your voice. And I feel like a lot of times what we think is like, oh, somebody who sings Barber one night is just going to be able to jump in and sing Ottavio the next night. Well, those are very different types of singing. And for me, I need like 3 weeks before I do a Barber to like put it in my voice and relax on it. I need like a lot of time to sing Ramiro. I'm realizing, I realized a lot of it is because of coloratura and fioratura, and then of course tessitura. Sure, like when you sustain a tessitura that's like that, and involving such things that you have to go in and out of it, that demands so much more of an agility than, I don't want to say agility, because there is agility that's involved in, say, a Tamino or an Ottavio or a Ferrando, but those are also like, it's a different sort of style of how you're placing the voice, and how quickly you want to move, and how, there's a lot of different things that you have to prepare for. I feel like I was very, I'm just going to be honest about it. My first time that I sang Ramiro was at the Washington National Opera, and I was singing, I was just telling the story with Alan Perriello the other day. I was singing La Fille de Régiment, which is the Tonio, the very high mezzanine aria and everything. But also, that aria is not like the rest of the role. It's a lot more like Nemorino, where it's so bel canto, and the final aria is so much. There's a lot of passion in it, but it's a lot lower than all of these high C's that you sing in that aria. But I sang that role right at the same time as I was starting rehearsals for Ramiro, and I overextended what I was doing, and I remember just being like racked with nervousness, and I was like, I'm never going to be able to sing this Cenerentola. I'm not going to be able to sing this opera. What am I doing? And what I needed was like 2 weeks away from Tonio to say like, oh, this is where I have to place my voice. I have to make sure that like my coloratura is settled for this aria. I have to make sure that the beginning, I can sing this duet without like over cranking a lot of the duet couplet, the coloratura with the mezzo. It's such like it is like a roadmap, but you need time to really like study each of the roadmaps and really like concentrate on one. And I overextended that in that first time, and I don't think I sang my best Ramiro the first time, but that's how you learn, I guess. And there was a lot of learning that was happening that 2014, when I was putting in extra time, and there were new roles, and I mean, new roles are something. I mean, it's also something that I think maybe looking at it from the audience's perspective, or you're just going to sit down, you're like, oh wow, this is a role debut for someone, but those are really, really stressful for everybody. Seeing someone that's done a role, whatever, the Traviata, whatever, it doesn't make any difference, something that you've done. There are people that have 600, 700, 800 performances
of a
that
certain
role.
opera, of course. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But like
Yeah.
when you do that first step on stage, talk a little bit more about that. I mean, for me,
Yeah.
that's something that, you know, is great for me to debut something, you know, in the pit's completely different. You know, my tesseratura is like either here or here. I'm good. You know,
Yeah.
depending on how short my podium is, I'm fine. But, you know, I think it's an exciting thing, but it can be a nerve-wracking thing, and it's something that it has a different kind of energy. Can you
Yeah.
talk about one of those debuts?
Totally, yeah. So role debuts have a lot of variables, you know, depending on the opera house, because there's a size difference, there
Yep.
is a personnel difference, there
Mhm.
is a how many players in the orchestra,
Mhm.
and of course, depending on the language of the role, the size of the role,
Mhm.
you're having so many things that you're really kind of like taking into account in order
Mhm.
to evaluate how
Right.
well you learn something, which you want to learn it the best possible way before you ever arrive, so that you feel like you can basically change whatever you need to in order to
Mhm.
accommodate, you know, a director and a conductor and your
Mhm.
counterparts on stage. So a lot of times, I think the most nervous that I get, we talked a lot about nerves yesterday,
Yeah.
and I think that's why you're kind of asking about this. I
We're
feel like,
leading into it.
yeah, opera, you just rehearse so much.
Right.
And like I said, there's so much that goes into it before you ever perform on stage,
Mhm.
that by that time you've had your muscle memory. You know,
Right.
you've gotten the role in your voice, you've moved around on stage with it. But it's that first day of music rehearsal where you maybe have not met your soprano more than one time before.
Right.
You just met your conductor,
Right.
and you are going to go in there and sing something that you had never performed for anybody except for you and a coach sometimes
Right.
before that. That's the scariest time.
Yeah.
And
First music
there are
rehearsal, always.
always the most scary.
Mhm.
But a lot of times you become so much more relaxed when you know things better. And so when you repeat roles, it's a little bit better.
Mhm.
Again, Rossini, I think that I always felt that new nervousness because there was a lot more preparation involved in Rossini. There was a different type of warm up. There was a different type of preparation for those
Sure.
for those 2 weeks before,
Mhm.
because you're getting yourself into shape basically.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I feel like the nervousness happens maybe 2 to 3 weeks depending on your rehearsal time before the
Right.
actual first day of performance. But that first day of performance, of course, when you're finally giving it to the audience and
Yeah.
actually able to inhabit the character and sing
Mhm.
all the things that you've been working on, sometimes feels like so much relief
Yeah.
that you know, that relief is also really it's also really good too.
Yeah, I think that, and the audience also gives you energy. There's a bit of an interaction between you and the public as well, you know, especially a very knowledgeable public and in a lot of different opera houses. I can't imagine. We've got a couple of comments from Susan here as well. Looking forward to hearing it
Yay.
again in a production. And this is one of my great friends, Jonathan Bratcarl, after the excerpt said, and of course,
Nobody's moving
Alan,
Bob over.
no one's moving. I mean, no one's moving Bob over. That's
No.
right. But, you know, he sounded absolutely fantastic. But,
Oh.
you know, we did talk about this yesterday, and I do want to talk about it because we've only got about 15 minutes left. And I think it's just, I think it's something that singers need to hear, and that also people that are interested in opera also need to hear. We were just talking about the nerves going into not just the first day and the first show, but, you know, nerves that you get as a performer, you know, any type of anxiety or nervousness, you know, I'm so glad that you're willing to share that, because you know, there's definitely a lot of people, and we know historically singers, conductors, people that, you know, physically were so nervous about getting on stage, they had to literally be pushed on stage. So, you know, if you could talk a little bit about your experience with that. I know we had a good conversation about it yesterday, but you know, I think it's a good thing to share. So
Yeah,
thank you for that. I
I
appreciate it.
totally understand why some people go through that. I can
Yeah.
totally see that that is a thing. And I've had times when I'm nervous, just because it's something that's, like I said, the variables are very different from what I've had before. Maybe it's a new place that I'm singing for. Maybe it's a new role that I hadn't done before. Maybe it's, you know, and all of those variables that we quote unquote don't have control over
Right.
are very much like you know, those are things we don't know. And really, fear is really just not knowing
Right.
what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just not being prepared for a situation.
Mhm.
And I feel like the nerves that we have can be used for good when we're actually able to incorporate them in the things that we do know, so that like we are prepared for things. We're obviously prepared musically with the text. We know what's going to happen on stage. We know what's going to happen with our partners on stage. We know what the conductor, and you have a good rapport that you can collaborate actually on stage. It is
Imagine that, collaborating with the conductor. No.
There's some guy down there waving like this, and he told me to look at him one time.
Yeah.
And the only times when I get really nervous are the things that I'm like, all right, I haven't rehearsed that enough, and I need to take that on myself and just be like, okay, I practiced this like this. If I can talk it out before the performance or something, or say something happened in the last performance that I don't want to repeat again, and I want to make better or easier. Those are the things that would make me nervous, but then they usually will usually, if I'm able to communicate them well enough, I'm able to make them better the next time. I don't know if we're going to do this last excerpt, but
yes, of course.
The last excerpt was the first time that I had ever sung the Steuermann in the Flying Dutchman.
Yeah.
And Steuermann is not that big of a role, but it's still very it's oddly difficult. It's a strophic song, and you basically have the stage to yourself when you're trying to do something that's completely different from kind of the rest of the opera.
Right.
But in the same way, it really sets up what the opera is all about, which is a love story and this and the sort of ghostly idea that somebody's far away. So it's for me, doing it for the first time at the Met was such a huge opportunity. And also, I wish I had sung it somewhere else first. I wish that I had done it maybe at the Lyric or maybe at the anywhere really first. Because those first days of rehearsal, I was just like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? But that wasn't my first.
And that was with Valerie Gergiev. Right.
And Gergiev. Yeah. And who had only been there for 3 rehearsals before our opening.
Wow.
So then the cut that y'all watched, which I don't own, the cut that we're going to see is from the third performance, and the fourth performance was supposed to be the HD broadcast and was canceled because COVID happened the day after this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we have the whole strophic song at the beginning. You want to set up a little bit of what
sure. I mean, it's the Steuermann is the steersman who he has just been left by Daland, who is the father of Zenta, the soprano heroine, and basically the Steuermann has trouble falling asleep during his love song. That's it.
So here's the excerpt from the Met with David Portillo.
Steuermann, die Wachen nimmst du wohl für mich. Gefahr ist nicht, doch gut ist's, wenn du wachst. Seid außer Sorg, schlaft ruhig, Kapitän. Gewitter und Sturm aus fernem Meer, mein Mädel bin dir nah. Über Turm hohe Flut vom Süden her, mein Mädel, ich bin da. Mein Mädel, wenn ich Südwind wär, ich nimmer wohl käm zu dir. Ach, lieber Südwind, blas noch mehr. Mein Mädel verlangt nach mir. Oh, jo, hallo, jollo, ho, ho, ho. Oh, je, hallo, ho, 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 ho. Gestarrt aus weitem Land, ich hab an dich gedacht. Durch Gewitter und Meer vom Morgenstrand habt ihr was mitgebracht. Mein Mädel preist den Südwind hoch, ich bring dir ein gülden Band. Ach, lieber Südwind, blase doch, mein Mädel hätt gern den Tag. Jo, je, holla, ho.
I literally stopped it right before the best music in the show.
I was just going to say, why did that just end? That's all right.
Sorry, guys.
That's all right. No. We've got some wonderful comments here. We've got Thomas Soto saying it's one of his favorite operas. And of course, Alyssa Albertson, of course, absolutely stunning.
Alyssa.
And Carla saying such wonderful things about you. Of course, we can all listen to you all day. Now, we're almost out of time, but I do want to cover a couple of things. And of course, all of us as artists all over the world have been suffering because of COVID. So of course, naturally, you've had cancellations. We've all had them. As you were just saying, right in the middle of this run, COVID hit and the Met had to close. But on the more positive side of that, I saw you just recently sing a recital with Yasko Ura here in Chicago. Yes. And I do know that, you love spending time at home. If you could just give us a little bit of the positive things that you've been doing during this shutdown. And then, of course, I know that we talked yesterday about a couple of things that people are going to be able to see you in soon, whether digitally or not. If you could talk about those before we go, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So, COVID has been definitely has taken a lot of the actual has taken some of the employment away. But of course, all artists are yearning to create and to collaborate. So we're looking for all the venues in the safest ways that we can. And we're offering all of this. And of course, Opera San Antonio doing these, and first of all, is already a huge step in the direction of making sure that audiences are watching artists be alive and really well, and trying to like continue to collaborate. I was very lucky to do the recital, like you said, with Yasko Oda a couple weeks ago for Valhalla Media. Valhalla Media is based in Chicago, and they're working with Chicago Opera Theater on a lot of really good projects. And shout out to Lexi LoBianco, amazing soprano, and her husband Nick, who are doing a really good job of creating productions that are available. And it is a pay platform, which is, I know that's sometimes it's still like making its way into our like idea about how to deal with virtual performances, but it's necessary because productions are very expensive, and and of course Valhalla is paid to, I think most of it is paid to watch, so it's like it's a great production company. So go Lexi and Nick. And so that happened a few weeks ago. I just did a recording, and it will come out October 9th for Austin Opera's Live at Indy Terrace. Another good Texas company that we're really excited to.
Part of the Texas Operatic Alliance. Always ready to support them.
Exactly. That little mini recital, about 25 minutes of music, is all Spanish song, actually, from Mexico, Argentina, and Spain, and it's for Hispanic Heritage Month. So that'll be October 9th, and look that up. And then, and meanwhile, every Friday they do a live virtual performance, about 20 to 30 minutes. And then at the end of the month, I'll do another virtual concert, but probably, I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but with barring all things, you know, for the Lyric Opera Chicago. So.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Our home house. Fantastic.
Home house, yeah.
But I mean, this was absolutely fantastic. I can't thank you enough for joining me and talking to me about all of these things. I just want to show that Susan's saying she saw that, and then of course our San Antonio at the Opera, Dottie Randolph, of course, always showing her support. Thank you so much, Dottie, for all of that. But I mean,
love Dottie.
Yeah.
There again, Dottie is somebody who
absolutely.
is such a huge part of my career and everything. I'm sorry, I'm just going to talk over you now. It's my internet. Sorry.
Please go right ahead. It's you. Go ahead.
I love that Dottie is watching. I love seeing all these people from my, you know, growing up, as you want to say, but really, like, they're all still a part of some of the heritage of where I like grew up in San Antonio and still making music, which is great.
No, I think that's absolutely fantastic. And thank you for doing this for Opera San Antonio, where you're from. We're so happy to have you here. This was just such a wonderful and enlightening interview. And I mean, I learned a lot about you. I mean, I've known you for a long time.
Texas Allstate. We're gonna make a documentary
Texas
about it.
Allstate. I just can't. I mean, I learned so many things about Texas today. But thanks again for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And if there's a little donation note here, if you have any ability to do that, we would greatly appreciate it. We love all of the support that everyone's shown us. We thank you so much for everything. And David Portillo, again, thank you so much. And we'll see.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, no worries. We'll see everybody in 2 weeks, where we will do another interview, and it's going to be just wonderful. I wish everybody a happy weekend, and I will see you all soon. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Cool.